Hetty's kind of a walking embodiment of what could have been, what might have been. And I think that's something that's really resonating with people. People don't want to go into whatever afterlife there may or may not be carrying regrets, but they also carry so much fear for change.
What's up, everyone? Tania here with PopCulture.com, and I'm so honored and excited to welcome one of the stars of Ghosts, now streaming on Paramount Plus, and Woodstone Mansion's lady of the house herself, Miss Rebecca Wisocky is here. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Always a pleasure to talk about ghosts, but especially with you.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's always so fun talking to you about the show, and I'm so happy because the show has received such I'm sure it's so humbling for you. The show has gotten such a great response from fans and critics, and the ratings keep going up every week. I think you guys have averaged 8.4 for the entire season, which is phenomenal for a freshman sitcom. What has been one of the most surprising things for you about this journey so far?
Well, you're right. It is humbling. I mean, as an actor, you just kind of want a job, and it's an added bonus if you like the job, and if you feel like you're good at the job, and if you like your coworkers, and then if other people like it, and it's just been blessing after blessing, which sounds, a little cliche, but it's so true. It's just wonderful. I think one of the things that has been so rewarding is to see the breadth of people that have found our show compelling. And all the fan art that's come out of it, and all the, the stories of people watching with their families across generations. And, I think everybody's got a Hetty in their family. Everybody's got a Trevor. Everybody, these characters are kind of, the archetypes of people we know in our lives. And I think that that has produced lots of opportunity for people to get together and have more difficult, probing conversations that have brought them closer, and also to enjoy a laugh at the same time.
Yeah. And, one of the coolest things I feel like for, watching from the outside in is you guys get to take part in all these really cool events, and the fans get to see it. And now this summer is the Summer of Ghosts, which is happening. And you led with the Carnegie Hall performance, which I got to watch with the rest of the CBS family. And it was phenomenal. You guys stole the show. And you guys are so good at music. I was telling Danielle, so you guys are so good at dancing. You were good at singing the song. Do you think this is going to be a tease of what's to come for season 2? We're going to see more musical things, maybe a musical episode?
Well, we were delighted when we got to do that at Carnegie Hall. I mean, that was mind-boggling, and was such a fast, raucous, amazing experience. And we're so happy that went over so well. I hope so. We've not been told anything for sure, so there's no real dirt to spill. But we've been. I mean, the cast obviously hangs out constantly, and we'd like to talk about everything that we would love to get to do together as a cast. And that's definitely one of the things that we kind of were joking about from very early on. Some of the very first weeks of filming together, we thought it would be so great because there are people in the cast that really do have that skill. And I found that I don't necessarily need to have that skill, because Hetty doesn't need to be a show tune singer. Hetty can be a church lady singer, which is what I enjoyed doing at Carnegie Hall a lot. It took some of the pressure off of me.
Yeah, it was so great. It was really fun. And, I love the recording too. I was just listening to the recording again today because it's just such a fun track, and it's very funny, and it's just written so well. And you guys all have a number, which a little segment. So it's so good. It's really fun. But this past season on the show, we did learn a lot about Hetty, and there's things that we also are now there's a lot of questions about her now. So I'm wondering, what's one of the biggest questions you want answered for her as we get into season 2 this fall?
What I want. I mean, I'm not going to be so presumptuous. Everything that they've given me has been so wonderful and surprising and exciting. And at the very beginning, I would say to the Joes, well, yeah, but you haven't said how she dies yet. How am I going to talk about this character? People are going to want to know. And they're like, no, this could go on for years and years and years. And it was like, oh, okay. Yeah. The more doors you kind of wait to open, the more, the different pathways you then leave open down the line. So I hope that we get to learn how she dies. I hope we get to learn what her power is, if she has a power, or if she's profoundly powerless. That would be just as juicy to play. Anything they hand me, I'm gonna take it and try to run. So I think we might figure out a little bit more about her backstory. I'm interested in meeting her mustachioed sister Margaret. I have no idea whether that's going to happen, but I love that. They've laid out so many little clues, and little story tidbits are planted, not only in the dialogue that we've had, but in that house itself. The production design, Zoe Sacalaropoulos is a genius. It's a beautiful set, and it's just layer after layer of story and history and texture, and there's so many places to go. So yeah, I'd like that. I'd love for Hetty to have some romance, if that's possible. I don't know with her.
You never know. There could be somebody like on the other side of the grounds, maybe like an ex like lover or something. You never know, because it's such a big. The estate's so big, so I think we're going to find out about more characters, which will be very fun. But the funny thing about Hetty is, I feel like she's evolved the most in terms of like understanding feminism and standing up to Elias, and then his toxicity, and then just becoming more compassionate at certain times. But like, how do you see that natural progression for her character in season 2?
Well, I think she possibly had the farthest to go. I've said this before. A lot of the other ladies in the show were pioneers in their time. Alberta certainly was, and Hetty was not. Hetty was representative of the social mores and the class structure of her time, and was kind of a snoot and possibly a very horrible person. She and her husband, and she was oppressed in her marriage, and didn't really try to break out of it, or didn't feel like she had the capacity to. And I'm interested in those first 20, 30, 40 years after Hetty died. Like, how much more of a stick in the mud was she? What were her first interactions with Alberta like? I mean, it took her 100 years to come around to the idea that women might be okay for women to vote. So, I mean, she's got a lot farther to go. I think something that's also really interesting, and I feel has been a theme with my character, at least, is this idea of the weight of regret. And I feel like Hetty's kind of a walking embodiment of what could have been, what might have been. And I think that's something that's really resonating with people. People don't want to go into whatever afterlife there may or may not be carrying regrets, but they also carry so much fear for change. And again, I mean, that sounds so Hetty, not Hetty, but Hetty, and that, but it's really true, and it's indicative of the way in which the show is light and frivolous and raucous and fantastical, but also really touches on some pretty deep themes. So yeah, change is possible. Change is happening. It's very slow with Hetty, but it is definitely, she's coming along.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that she's also learning through Sam, like watching, and like you bring up that regret thing, and I feel like there's that really nice relationship they have. It's like a maternal relationship, and it's very heartwarming. And you guys have obviously, your characters have gotten much more closer, which is really nice to see. And I feel like she's kind of like her surrogate mother now, because like she lost her own mom, so then she gets to have Hetty kind of be there for her. Shows did tell us that season 2 would be an arc of Sam and Jay's struggling business and the strains it puts on them as a couple. So I'm wondering, how do you see Hetty being there for Sam in season 2?
I've loved exploring that relationship, and Rose and I have become close in real life as well, as have all of the ladies, especially. But I think that I want to know what Hetty's relationship with her own children, if she had any, was. I think she's got a lot of mistakes and, like I said, regrets about how she lived her life, and her interaction with her own potential daughter. Maybe we don't know whether or not she had one, but that slow burn maternal surrogacy that is developing with Sam's character, it has been very fun and very rewarding, and I think that will continue. Rose and I both enjoy playing it. We've convinced ourselves that we're looking more and more like we're related, which really flattering to me, if nothing more. but yeah, I think Hetty will continue to be the surrogate mother figure to Samantha.
Yeah. And the thing also that I've loved so much, I feel like when you bring all that up, I feel like they're kind of like the puzzle pieces to each other. Obviously they are related, but like, the way she is treating Sam now, it looks like as if there was a strain in her own past life with her family. And like, if she did have children, like what was it like? So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic, I think, to see going into season 2. But
yeah, and also in her own childhood, when you see the
yeah.
flashback with Thorfinn as her imaginary friend, singing her lullabies, and by her own admission, she says this imaginary friend, that Thorfinn was the only person that ever really took care of her in her life. So she clearly had an icy relationship with her own parents, and had a kind of loveless childhood and a loveless marriage. And so in some ways, you can't really blame her for being so slow to catch up to modern ways. But
yeah, no, it's a very interesting point, because I mean, even that dynamic she had, like we learn so much when there are those different combos of characters. We get to see different parts. Like when your characters with Thorfinn, we get to see how she was before, and then it's really beautiful. It's just so beautifully done. The writing is so great, and I love how it just kind of it's very natural, organic. And like I think that's why fans love it so much. But I do want to talk about the Vault episode, because that was such an amazing one, and I watched it again last night because it's just so funny. And like it's one of those episodes where like there's so much that's going on, and like the dialogue is so done so well. And I also love that they show like a devilishly fun side of you. So so I'm wondering, like, do you think like her ability to send souls to hell is an actual power, or like Pete said, it's just like Elias not, wanting to change? Because I feel like her character then juxtaposed to such power is kind of ironic almost.
I love it. I love the symbolism of it. I love that Hetty, having had in some ways she had all the privilege in the world, but no power in the world, which is something that's also interesting to think about as an actor. But I love that when she gets some glimpse of some sort of power, she becomes like this greedy child. The same way when Jay possesses her in the possession episode, or when Hetty possesses Jay in that episode, she becomes this ravenous, eating all the Cheetos and wanting to run to Paris. And she has so much pent up desire that I think that's a nice kind of character to have, that is so pent up, so literally corseted and tied together, that when that dam breaks a little bit, they become uncontrollable. And that's very, very fun to play. But in the Vault episode, one of the things that I love so much about that in that scene was that we were all together. And I mean, it's some of the most, fun that we have is when we get all these scenes together. And while it was, largely just me speaking in that scene, it was so much an ensemble scene. Everyone was there. Everyone was gathered around. There was so much emotion in filming that scene late on a Friday night. And I think we managed to conjure this sense that Hetty doesn't realize until that moment that she has the right and the capacity to speak up. And then, of course, she takes it one step too far and believes that she also has the capacity to, banish people to hell. So I don't know. I love it. I love it. I love it. I loved it too. I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, it's so good. And like, I know one of the things I've noticed, like from some of the fans on Twitter, like even on Reddit, like they're writing, like, how many times did it take for Asher to do that take where he had to jump when you told him to go to hell? Like, was that like something that was just like one take and it was perfect? Or was it
instantly? He did it instantly. I mean, he's great. I love him. I love working with him. I love everybody. I mean, everyone fits their role so perfectly. We've said it a million times before, but Tanis Vallely and Liz Barnes have cast this to perfection. Is there an Emmy Award for casting? Why not?
And, aside from your performance in that, which like nails the episode, what do you think made it such a fan favorite, like one that stands out, especially in the writing?
Well, it was wonderful that we got Matt Walsh to come play with us. It was wonderful that, you wait, what is it, 13 episodes in, and then the mythology changes. So all of us were blown away and completely surprised that they even introduced the concept of hell. I mean, they're constantly surprising us, but that's the way in which this universe can fracture and change, and can continue to change, on into season 2 and beyond. I mean, the writing's just really good. The writing's just really tight. It's really smart. It's sensitive. It has great heart, and it's incredibly funny, incredibly tight.
Yeah. And that's the thing I love about it. I feel like it's so different from a lot of the other comedies that are out right now. Like that's why I think it's doing so well, and like it's going to keep growing on Paramount Plus, which is streaming the entire summer for everybody to watch. So like for them to like know that this show is like how Devin said, it's like comfort food, or how he said it's like the sister of traveling pants. Like it's like one size kind of fits everybody. So like that's exactly what he said.
Kevin is king of the like most absurd analogies possible. And he's, as is everyone, but he is particularly delightful. It's very hard to keep a straight face working with Kevin Chandler Long.
Yeah, he's very fun. And obviously I love the writing, but like there are a lot of creative turns I think the episodes take, which is like something I'll never imagine. Like, especially like Flowers' backstory. I didn't think about that. And even Trevor's like reasoning for his pants. Like, and I'm wondering, was there an episode or a backstory that surprised you the most? Maybe even if it's something with your character or even the others?
I thought that the storyline where they started to evolve Flowers' backstory and having her become, this basketball expert and fan was not only like a surprising, juicy tidbit, it also happens to be true in real life. And they had no idea, like their finger is really on the pulse of what like the primary color of each of these actors is as well. But it also was able to fracture and tie together, like the guy who was the nicest guy on the show, Pete, was actually, behaved in a very sexist manner towards her, which was also very typical possibly of his own time period and shortcoming of that time period. So everything has multiple meanings and multiple avenues and ways in which it connects all of us as this organism. And you kind of touched on this before, but the idea that we're puzzle pieces, and that for some reason, this particular crew is trapped together for this particular period of time. Yeah. They have something to learn from one another. And it's a motley crew that would have never intersected in real life. And only in knowing one another are they capable of being open to change. Are they capable of understanding that they maybe have change to make? And that's something that's endlessly fascinating. And I mean,
Yeah, it's amazing. And another episode that we were just talking about was Possession, and Utkarsh Abhmakar did an amazing job channeling you. And so I'm wondering, can you like teach us a little bit of channeling our inner Hetty, especially in terms of like manners, or even if it's posture or anything that we need to know? Because like, do I need to be straight right now?
So if you want to cosplay for Halloween, did you see that Rose McIver cosplayed for me last year? Well, first of all, the costume does a whole lot. So like, just imagine, Tania, that you're being sucked in through the middle and your diaphragm is completely compressed, and you have to, you can't really, you have to bend over like this as though you're a tea kettle. And your hands are necessarily in a way. Well, when he did it, he said there's a fine line between T-Rex hands and Hetty hands. Very true. So just kind of imagine that you're a T-Rex. And there's a real sense of musicality in the way the role is written, the way I hear it, at least. So if you think of it as singing a bit and changing your mind in the middle of a sentence a lot, she does that, and adding extra syllables to words whenever possible. And that everything just seems very novel and very new at any given time. That's a little bit of it.
I know that we have the Summer of Ghosts going on this summer.
Have you noticed the beautiful flowers?
Yes, the flowers. Thank you for showing.
Casually happen to be in the background.
Yeah,
these were for the Day of Flower yesterday. Jeff Fitham did all these beautiful. I know you saw these amazing, detailed. Like this is right here. This looks like a majestic bouquet. It goes on for like 5 feet.
Yeah,
it's gigantic. Anyway, so the next one is the Etiquette.
Etiquette, yes.
Hetty gets her.
Can you tease us anything about that? Like anything we know right now about it?
All I know is that there's Hetty has some sort of book of etiquette for her time period and for her own personal idiosyncratic weirdness of what is appropriate. And, when I was doing research for the role, one of the books that I read was this book, I think it's called What Would Mrs. Astor Do? Wow. So, and I did a lot of research about the etiquette of the time period, and there's lots of real weird stuff. So that gave me a clue about other weird things and about Hetty that I could explore. Like, for instance, I think she would have been mortified to have died without a hat on. I'm very happy I don't have to wear a hat for whoever
Right.
these things, but, and then, thinking the Audubon Society was, I think, started in the 1860s, something like that. And it was started because there were a group of fancy ladies who thought all of a sudden that putting feathers, killing birds, beautiful birds, to put feathers in their hats was horribly cruel. And that was the beginning of the Audubon Society. So I think it would be a great idea if Hetty, although she was horrible to the child workers in her factories, was a big, advocate for birds.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. Hypocrisy. I mean, I've said it before, but like things, that's where like, humanity seems to, to lie for this character, for me, is the ways in which she betrays herself at every turn and can be, horrible and have children working in her factories and have disdain for lots of people, but then also, be fiercely protective of bird plumage.
Yeah, of course. But like,
she's weird.
Yeah.
She's taught me to celebrate my own inner weirdness a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, to embrace your inner weirdness, because like everyone, we're all a little weird, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah. Rebecca, thank you. It's always been such a pleasure chatting with you, and I know that everyone's going to be so excited for the Summer of Ghosts, which is happening across this country, and everyone's going to be staying tuned to social media for everything. But guys, for more with Rebecca Wisocky and Everything Ghosts, which is now streaming on Paramount Plus, keep it locked to popculture.com for the latest.